morning, and we'll start the annual meeting for the Shannon County IDA. We'll start this one a little bit differently because I think we do a roll call and then we elect the chairman. So I guess we'll start with Taylor.
Zeno here.
Given here. Corey here.
Bird here.
Blanchard here. Raymond here.
Okay, and so this is a little bit, we originally had talked about this at the last meeting. Randy had and Brian had a conversation. Brian, because of an exhaustive schedule and a lot of boards that he's on, had asked to stay involved with the IDA but step down as the chair. Randy was going to come on as the interim for him as we considered how to move forward, as you considered how to move forward with a permanent chair. Brian, I think a lot of you know, but I asked Brian specifically, we've had a lot of turnover on the DCC board and the Commerce Shenango board. There's significant turnover on both boards, and Brian is consistent on all three boards. So I would like to have him stay there for that consistency for a few months until I can get those new board members elected and everybody acclimated to those boards and understanding what their roles and responsibilities are. Randy was more than willing to say he would wait for those few months, and frankly, he was glad to let Brian do that. Brian and I asked him to stay till June, said he would at least do it until September. So I'd like you guys to start to think about who Brian, I definitely would want Brian to stay involved, but I would love for Brian to, whoever, once he's not the president, whoever you guys are chairman, who that should be. But for now, Brian has agreed. So I think we need somebody to nominate him, and then we go through the officers from there.
I'd like a nomination for Brian to stand as chairman.
Gee, thanks, Randy.
I'll second.
Appreciate y'all.
So then I think somebody has to make that motion. Brian gets elected, and then we go from there. Brian takes the-
Randy nominated, Mike second.
I second.
And that's all in favor?
I will do a roll call.
Yeah, roll call. Well,
Oh, you do a roll call vote, Brian? I'm sorry, I
that's
apologize.
okay.
Zeno, I.
Given
Corey, aye. Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
All right, it passes. Brian is now elected as the chairman, and I will gladly turn the meeting over to Brian. Thank you very much.
Sucker.
And I apologize for the clunkiness there.
No,
That's
that's fine, Sal. It's new and takes a minute to get used to it. Okay, so moving on with the annual meeting, the Shenango IDA has approved the 2023 slated committee members. So I need a motion to approve the audit and finance committee consisting of myself, Pete, and Randy, and the governance committee consisting of myself, Pete, and Randy. Need a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Need a second?
Corey will second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Zeno, I.
Given
Corey, aye.
Bird and I.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
Okay. Carried. Resolution, be resolved that Shenango County IDA has approved 2023 official newspaper depository legal counsel and executive director as indicated below, effective March 29th, 2023. Official depository MDT, official publication, The Evening Sun, agency legal counsel Kevin Pohl, executive director Salvatore Testani. Whoa, I don't know why I struggled with that. Need a motion to approve those? Jeff approved, motion, need a second?
Second.
Second by Pete. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Zeno, I.
Given
Corey, aye.
Burton abstain.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Shenango County ID Board of Directors has reviewed and responded to the bylaws of the Shenango County Industrial Development Agency. The bylaws were attached to this pamphlet as well, and this is nobody's first year, so you should be familiar with that. Need a motion to approve and accept the bylaws.
So moved.
Corey.
Corey.
I need a second.
Given sir.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Zeno, I.
Given
Corey, aye.
Bert and I.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
Okay. The Shenango County ID Board of Directors has reviewed and responded to the items off Authority's Budget Office Authority Mission Statement and Performance Measurement Document. The Shenango County IDA Board of Directors has approved the Authority Mission Statement and Performance Measurements Document for submission to the Authority's Budget Office. Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Need a second?
Give it a second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Zeno, I.
Give it a.
Corey, aye.
Bert and I.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
And last but not least, be resolved that the Shenango County IDA Board of Directors has approved the bookkeeper to prepay utility vouchers prior to the monthly board meetings. Need a motion?
So moved.
Jeff approved.
Corey, second.
Corey seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Zeno, I.
Give it a.
Corey, aye.
Bert and I.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
Congratulations. We made it through another annual meeting. Need a motion to adjourn the annual meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I will, Brian, just for a minute. I just want to thank this board. So the annual report is in here, and I want you guys to, if you get time to go through it, but you'll see all the projects that you guys have been engaged with. You'll also see your evaluations. Everybody on the board filled out their evaluations. This board runs so smoothly because all of you stay engaged and involved. You make the meetings, you stay informed, you ask questions, you literally push us to include things regarding tourism and economic development and all kinds of different considerations when we come to you guys. So I appreciate it. That makes this role a much more realistic to get things done. So that's all I want to say. Appreciate it. I'm glad you guys are staying consistent. I'm glad this board has been involved, and I hope you will do the same thing for 2023.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote to adjourn.
Zeno, I.
Give it a.
Corey, aye.
Bert and I.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
All right. Annual meeting is adjourned. Now, we'll roll call in for the Shenango County IDA regular meeting of March 29, 2023 at 8:07 a.m. We'll roll call ourselves in.
Zeno here.
Give it a.
Corey, here.
Burton here.
Blanchard, here. Raymond, here.
Great. Waive the reading of the IDA mission statement. Need a motion to approve the minutes of February 28, 2023, regular meeting minutes.
Make that one.
Motion by Randy. Need a second?
Second.
Second by Pete. Any discussion, omissions, or corrections? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Zeno, I.
Give it a.
Corey, aye.
Bert and I.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
Great. Financial report of February 28, 2023, financial statements. Kathy Jo, you are up.
Okay. So I did make a change from January. I did remove the hybrid twins income and move that to June. So in the income state, or the statement of activities, you'll see that the January numbers did change. And then for the aged receivables, everything Bagley did give us permission to pay the utilities ACH, and that started this month. So you'll start seeing that come off the aged receivables for the utility bills.
Are they paying on time?
Yes, they are.
Good.
It's ACH.
Perfect. Anything else, Kathy Jo, on the financials that's out of the ordinary?
The sale to Clark Park went through in February where we got the 60,000. So that increased the revenue in February. Other than that, there's no other changes. Oh, we did get the final utility bill on the Protel building, on the 4th utility bill. So this will be the last payment to them too, for the nice.
So we're actually ahead of budget income-wise at this point.
Yes.
It's a good problem to have. Not what we're used to. Okay, any questions on financials? No? Need a motion to approve the financials?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Gibbon. Need a second?
Second.
Oh, Corey beat you to it, Blanchard. Or Pete beat you to it.
Still reading.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Zeno,
Given.
Corey, aye.
Bert and I.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
Okay, carries. Bills and invoices. You see it's about $19,000 this month. Commerce bill's about 11,700, which is slightly less than it was running, I believe, towards the end of the stint when the previous executive director was here. We were getting up into the $12,000, almost $13,000 range on a monthly basis. So that's good. Then a couple of utility payments, legal. I will say we're using our legal counsel a lot. Constantly getting questions on things, pushing back through Barb to go to legal counsel. Generally, Barb will ask Jenna, myself, and Sal the question. If we don't know, we push back to legal counsel. I feel with Sal being as new as he is, still getting his feet wet with this, Barb and Jenna learning the position that if we have any question that is legal in nature, that we truly utilize them. And I know it's probably going to cost us a little more, but I think the protection is well worth the expense. So.
And we're trying to add a couple lawyers to a couple of our other boards so we can start to ask them questions, right? So we've actually got some lawyers that have joined the chamber. We didn't even have an attorney. I mean, we like a local one, like Adam Spence now has joined. So now I can call him up and ask him some simple questions, and he's helped me here and there. So I'm going to try to reduce those costs, Brian, but you're right. We probably erred on the side of caution.
Yeah, we've had a lot of contract negotiation recently too, especially with the sale of the North Norwich property. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of legalities involved in it, for which it was not the norm necessarily in a normal contract. The sale of the buildings, just anything and everything that's come up that's been legal. We had to send out another letter to the railroad, which we did get a response, and hopefully you saw that in your packet. So that's why there's some cost there.
And then you said at the beginning, Brian, we are tremendously focused on our overall expenses, our discretionary spending and what we attend and the things that we do. So we can control our expenses to overcome that with a middle expense.
Yeah, but it's a protection. So again, I don't mind paying to be protected. So. All right, so I need a motion to approve the bills and invoices.
So moved.
Motion by Pete, second by Corey. I was going to say your name anyway. Any discussions, corrections? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Zeno, aye.
Given.
Corey, aye. Bert and I.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
Good, carries. She said, I don't know why I wanted to not be chairman.
It's going smooth, Brian. Keep it up.
Executive Director report. Sal, you're up.
I won't derail us. We've got 3 new things, but I think that you guys might be aware of. You're aware of the solar projects, and we'll talk about those pilots in a minute. But 3 new things that have come up recently. Jenna and I met with 2 developers via the realtors, Cushman and Wakefield. They want to develop 120 East Main Street, which is the old CWS building. They're quite serious about this. They I'm going to be too simplistic in this, but they make some type of silicone that they square out in 3-foot cubes, and it's used in construction for things like insulation, so on and so forth. These guys are from someplace in Eastern Europe. They have a manufacturing facility, I think, on Long Island. This stuff is used in the Northeast. They'd like to get it closer to where it's utilized. It's huge and cubed. There's a big facility down there. We're just in the infancy stages. We've connected Eric Scribner with them, who will help us with grants and availability and things like that we might be able to do. But interesting, warehouse first and then potentially 40 to 50 jobs. Another one that we've been in contact with again through the Golden Shelter thing that Hannah does on our site, through the realtors, Hannah, I met with them yesterday, some follow-up. There's some activity in the New Berlin corridor on that schoolhouse over there. There's some people that are talking about maybe developing that into a multi-use facility. Very early stages, but again, something I'm sure the IDA would be engaged in. And then speaking of multi-use facilities, I think you guys might have seen the announcements of the Achieve building. The Achieve building is in the old CWS building where Nortogs used to be. It's a big empty building that they have now. They're going to be moving their rehabilitation site off of the Country Club Road, putting it down there and creating that rehabilitation site, which will help train alternative workforce, people that can enter into the workforce. I don't know if you guys know, but when the CWS used to be there, there was 134 workers. Kathy Joe used to work there. I was very familiar. I grew up in that neighborhood, right? So that community used to have those people come together to work for lots of area businesses. Over time, they recognized that people are better if they're immersed into businesses rather than put together and segregated. Businesses, and ACO was one of them in the old days, recognized by employing people of diversity. Doesn't matter what the diversity is, it teaches empathy and it makes a much more productive workforce. Achieve is on a mission to do that. We need alternative workforces here in Chenango County to help us get things done. Think of the young man Ryan that works at the YMCA. He's the most conscientious worker I know. There's workers like that. We need to help them, and expanding that facility and may involve, they've got their money to do what they need to do now, but they want to put a senior center in there, and we would like to connect a daycare center to that. So we would like to make a multi-use facility. They have the room to do it. It's a big project. It's already got a lot of money behind it. I'm infancy stages again, but we're meeting with them again next week with their chief operating officer. I'm certain you guys will eventually be engaged in that. And I think that's it. Those are the new ones that we've got going on that are pretty significant. Questions about any of them?
Which building did you say the first manufacturer you talked, the silicone
The
manufacturer?
original CWS building across the street.
Oh,
from
across the street,
parking lot.
okay.
Yeah, and so they want half that parking lot. They've got some plans there. I mean, and they're serious about this. They sound as if they're as serious as the Coco. We haven't heard any more from the Coco June guys. So those guys have invested, I don't know, $5-6 million of their own money. They're working on financing through developing, and then I know they've met with area banks and stuff to try to figure that out. We've tried to offer them some assistance and figure out how to help them, but they must not need it. So they're very engaged. We have a great relationship with them, but they haven't come to us. And as long as they're putting private dollars into it, we're more than happy to let them.
You know, if they're expanding or are they relocating?
Coco June?
No, I'm talking about the polymer or the
They're
silicone.
expanding. They want to get up. They need more room. They need warehouse space, and then they eventually want to put production. So that place has huge 30-foot tall racks in there. And so you've been in there, Mike? Yeah. So I remember too. We used to send a bunch of work there. They're very serious about it. And I mean, Eric has had a follow up. We sent them some stuff. They're gonna get back to us next week because they're on holiday. Those are the things we got going. Those are the new things we got going. I can transition into this pilots, Brian, if you want me to, the update on that.
Yeah, is there any other discussion on those three items that Sal talked about? No? Okay, go ahead, Seth.
Just that we did meet with the lawyers. We understand that the Norbit pilot was originally started, wasn't within the parameters of our UTEP provisions. It was a 30-year pilot as originally submitted. We've kicked it back to them and said that's not acceptable. Our lawyers are aware of the fact that we have a UTEP now, and that I think we're in the process of re-entering or re-establishing those.
Well, the Norbit Solar has already been approved, so I believe they have said you are.
We're not gonna go backwards.
We're not gonna go,
We're gonna,
yeah,
okay.
we have to.
So you guys are
stay
aware of
with
that
what
then,
we
right?
have.
So the Norbit policy was a 30-year pilot and was approved already. And so we're in the stages of, it doesn't follow within the UTEP. And so we're gonna move forward with that pilot, correct? I wanna make sure that's on
I
everybody's
don't
radar.
think we can go back and say, oh yeah, by the way,
That's a discussion that I
that's
wanted
the
to
one
have
in
you guys have.
Coventry.
So we talked to them and the lawyers have said to me, hey, this has been agreed upon and you guys have all, so I just want to make sure there's transparency because I don't want Steve Harris and everybody after he came here and gave us a big presentation to come back and
I
So-
don't believe that we can
I
go
don't think
back
so.
and say, hey.
When did we sign that agreement with the pilot? Remember?
That was back in 2021.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I think we asterisk that one
Okay, right.
as kind of this is the last one
Okay,
that was approved prior to the UTEP, just because it took so long to finally get to the stage where they're gonna get into production and whatnot. That, you know,
Yes.
we can't, right? So we
I think
approved
so.
the contract.
Well, no, so we approved that pilot on basis of the best information we had at the time.
At the time, right.
So I don't see
I
that-
just want to make sure, just transparency, guys, so that it's out there, because I don't want Steve or Bill Crane coming back and saying, holy cow, you had the guy come to a meeting, and then the very next thing you know,
Yeah.
they won't do that. I'm just making sure we all.
If they do ask you, look, this one was actually approved in 2021,
Right, yeah, we can't really. go
before
back.
we had the knowledge we have today.
I just wanted you to know we talked about
Yeah.
that. We talked
Yeah.
about it with the attorneys, as you guys would have wanted. And then the other one is the Smyrna Solar. Randy asked some questions about that. This is the inducement. I talked to the lawyers again to make sure I have a pretty good understanding of this. And what this is to say, okay, we're serious. If everything goes according to the way we've started this, with the way they've indicated, the way that the Smyrna Solar project has been negotiated, that IDA intends to move forward. That's all this really is. It's an intention, a more serious statement of our intention to move forward, but it doesn't get into the years or we will make sure that everything is followed in the UTEP policy that was created, including the decommissioning bond.
I would equate this to a commitment letter.
Kind
by us.
of, yep. That's, I asked the lawyer, that's what the conversation was. So, because Randy asked me, hey, there's nothing here about decommissioning, there's not, and I said, okay, I want to make sure that this is really, we're not bound, of course, there'll be, all of that will be in there, the negotiation. This is really to start the specifics of those.
This is not an approval of a pilot.
Exactly,
Approval of
exactly.
going through the pilot process.
I made sure I asked him that. We called him as soon as I got
When
the.
you review that, it talks about the property taxes, and it talks about the pilot, but it doesn't talk about decommission, it doesn't talk about school taxes. And it was my own concern.
Yeah.
Since I didn't see that, and that's been.
Well, that was a great question, because we're very conscientious of that now, and if we're handed a document that has anything to do with a pilot for solar or anything anymore, that, you know, the first thing I think a lot of us are looking for in front of, you know, that's in front of mind for us is those items, you know.
I would hope, Brian, as we get better and Jen and I get better, you won't ever get one of those, because we would, unless we came to you with some explanation of, right? So I would hope any pilot that came, we would have the ability to say, no, this won't work. If they're asking for this, we know that we can't do that for 30 years, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we would hope to negate some of that before you guys have to do that. Having the UTEP helps. These are the parameters.
It's a game plan, right? You
Yeah.
follow your game plan, there
Yeah.
should be no questions.
Yeah.
Good job. Any other questions, comments, concerns on that?
Do you need to do a resolution for that?
Yeah, we have this,
Oh,
and then we
yeah,
need
the
to
inducement
do, we
resolution
need
is in
to
there.
act on it. Please.
Thank you.
Is that in here?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in here. It's right after the straight lease checklist. It should be in there.
There you go, straight list checklist.
And then it's, yeah, right after inducement resolution.
All right, so I need a motion to approve the inducement resolution of the New York Smyrna 1 LLC facility.
So moved.
Moved by Pete, second,
Be accepted.
given seconds. Any more discussion?
Can we expand on, I just got a question on the term leaseback transaction. That's in the main heading of the resolution. Why is that important? Is that just legal arrangements for taxation? I don't understand how that really works, because the lease is between the LLC and the landowner. Maybe I'm missing something, but I just don't quite understand how that works.
Makes it tax exempt.
What did you say, Pete? I'm
So it's
sorry.
just a mechanism to allow tax exemption.
Yeah, we're tax exempt, they aren't.
Right.
So if we lease it from them and then lease it
And they
back,
piggyback it up.
claim the tax exemption,
All right,
I understand.
thank you.
Hence the thing we do with the real.
Yeah.
Right, lease back.
So again, we just mentioned, this is not a binding agreement, this is not what we were just discussing about Norbit, where there's no off-ramp on the contract. This is just establishing the parameters.
This is actually saying we're gonna be able to just start to establish the parameters. Like, I asked the question of saying, okay, this is, can you help me explain what the inducement is? And really, I'm gonna paraphrase to the best of my abilities, Matt Wells said, this is really an agreement by the IDA that if everything goes according to our expectations, which our reasonable expectations would be they follow our UTEP, they have a decommissioning by all the things that we would reasonably expect them to do, that we would move forward. I can't talk about it. We would move forward with our pilot program, right? That's really what this is. So it's not saying, yes, we approve this pilot, because there's no parameters in there to approve. So I asked them that question Monday this week.
Well, the language in there does specify 20 years, it does specify tax.
That's the basic of it. Again, this is not the approval of the pilot.
Okay.
Because I don't know that they've come back and said, okay, they may ask for 30, I don't think we've got all I know this is not an agreement. This
Okay.
is just an agreement to start to enter into an agreement.
Great.
Anything else? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Zeno, I.
Given that.
Corey,
Bird aye.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
Awesome, carries. Old business, NYS and W update. As you see, it's in your packet if you didn't get a chance to read it. I got an email about a month ago. It might not even been that long. It might only been a couple of weeks ago from the attorney asking if it'd be appropriate or if we were interested in sending out a follow-up letter to the follow-up letter we sent out about 6 months ago and got a response from the railroad just to find out where they were at and if they've done any of the things that they said they were going to do in that first letter. And as you can see, we got back an extensive checklist with timelines and whatnot. A nice response from the railroad. More probably what we've been looking for all along as to what are you going to do? What's the plan? What are some of these timelines? And so I do appreciate the railroad's response to this, and I do appreciate our attorney following up with us to find out if we wanted to reach out to them again. So that's what we got as a response, and it looks like they plan on trying to get it operational.
Yeah, I looked at what they did accomplish last year, and that I understand, but what they're looking at going forward, I don't even begin to understand. This makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I assume it's a little bit of like railroad jargon with like all the ARs and whatnot, and the coding. And what I took most out of this was, the scheduling of the work for 2023 will depend on the results of inspections and other demands on our maintenance forces. So they're at least going as far as doing inspections, finding out what needs to be done. You're right, it was a lot easier to follow along to what's been done. But
Brian, the only
Still
other
more to
thing
go.
I might related to the railroad is that, as you know, I met with Chris Olson and Dr. Holmes, and people from the Greenway. They continue to want to utilize the railway as a means to connect a corridor from Utica to Shenango Forks, for lack of a better term. Literally, and I don't want to be too simplistic, but the trail itself could be used for all kinds of self-powered vehicles, and they have a vision for this that ties in with the Greenway activities. They've asked repeatedly about, what our intentions are with the railroad, what the railroad's intentions are. There's some, as you guys know, some adamance about what they think the railroad is doing is stringing us along and so on and so forth. But Chris Olson, who's on that and is a lead, is a very understanding and reasonable person that knows that decommissioning that and getting that iron out of the ground, and there's millions and millions of dollars of track that would have to be reclaimed. And that would have to be done by the railroad. The railroad would have to put that thing in a bank so that they could come back because it is critical infrastructure. So it's very, very complicated. And Chris understands that. This, though, to me, starts to say, okay, we had 120 East Main Street, those guys asking, is the railroad going to be potentially developed? Coco June sits next to the railroad in Green. They've asked the same questions of those. So, I had thought probably not until I see this report coming back that maybe this railroad will be operational again. So I owe the Greenway people a response. They want to come and make a presentation to this board. And I told them once the board was seated again, we would have them do that. I want you guys, so they're going to come in and make that presentation and conversation on what they want to do. I want to make sure in the context of this, we're considering that. I don't want to mislead them. No, Matt's here. He can speak to some of this. He's well aware of what their intentions are. I want to give them some indication and feedback. I told them I would after we had this meeting today. I mean,
Yeah, it's fine.
come in, give the presentation.
Yeah.
But right now, with this, I didn't have this information. At the time, I didn't see any feedback from the railroad that they were going to move forward, that they had intentions. But to me, too, Brian, it looks like they want to keep this thing operational, for the potential to use it.
Or at least in a place where they could quickly get
They
it
could turn it on.
operational. Yeah.
Right. It certainly doesn't feel that they want to bank it. Bank it means they put it aside. Chris explained all this to me, the gentleman from the Greenway. They put it away and they say, we can recall it again if we need it, in times of, critical infrastructure can be reclaimed whenever they need it to be, right? So, but then somebody would have to tear that track up, and that's millions of dollars of expense because there's millions of dollars of iron and wood and all the other stuff that goes on. You can see them doing it. They're doing it right up. If you drive from here to Lake Placid, they're tearing up the railroad, but they're not just throwing it away. They're piling it up, and somebody's railroad's going to get it again. So without the railroad's cooperation to say, yes, we want to do that because we're never going to use it again, it's going to be hard to give the Greenway what they want. Does that make sense? It doesn't appear that.
If I'm not mistaken too, but I remember a conversation with Steve, who's still here, about the removal of the rails and stuff. And we thought maybe that would be our materials, but it's not. My understanding at the time Steve was telling us, all the infrastructure belongs to the railroad.
That's right.
So how could we give their infrastructure away?
They have to I'm really,
No,
I'm not that, but Chris kind of explained it. He wants the railroad for this rail trail that he envisions, but he also was very realistic to say exactly what you said, that the railroad has to approve all this because they have to either say, go ahead, we don't want it, and then there's value for you, but then think how complicated that is, because then each municipality has to be responsible for getting that up and reclaiming it, and almost impossible to envision how they would do that in the county, right? But then the railroads normally will say, which is going on up in the North Country, we want that. We're gonna bank that line, you can use it but we're gonna take that someplace else and reuse it, because it's cheaper than rebuying it. And that would have to be the railroad saying, we want that. And it doesn't appear that they're gonna say that.
Well, maybe there's a question for another time when they come and give their presentation, but it's kind of like a third party effect. If they're just talking about Chenango County, right, and you take the tracks out, I don't know that much about railroads, but if you take the tracks out, what happens to the counties north of us that depend upon the connection?
Mostly, they can't get
The railroad is not operational.
I think it's still operational in Madison. I think there's a section.
Down.
Right, but what good is it if
Exactly.
you can't go anywhere? You maybe do a few miles. So then my other question is, you talked about banking it. Now it just seems like this report is straight assessment. So could you just assess your way into another year, and then is that another way of banking it? You just continue to make assessments, continue sending reports, and you're really not doing anything. It's basically just administrative.
Yeah.
The only thing this helps us with is the IDA, because we work with them with FEMA to get the funding and stuff, and there's a guarantee that they have to have 10 years. Once the work is done, they have to do at least 10 years of continuous use.
Mhm.
Well, at least this shows something that we've got that they're trying to get it back in use. And it's not because of the flood damage, it was because of something else. I mean, the scouring of the bridges and stuff, that goes on over time. It's not just one event that causes it. I think this is something that's good for our files, if anybody ever came back on us, to see what we're doing with the railroad to try to get them open up again. That's the only I see.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
And so this is just for my question and my learning, because honestly, you guys know that I believe that creating recreational tourism is an opportunity here in the county. And so how long do we go where the railroad is just saying, hey, we're assessing and we're looking and going on and on and on? I mean, do we just do that like indefinitely? Like, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how do I, as long as they say it's a possibility, this is what, I mean, I'm okay with that. I just want to understand how to think about it. I'm learning this.
Well, along those same lines, though, you could look at the liability that goes on, because those bridges and stuff that are up there, you can take the rail out, just have the ballast that's down there for trail. But when you're going across those bridges and the spaces in between the ties and everything else, someone has to have a plan for making those, I don't know if they're gonna be handicap accessible, or if they're gonna go ahead and make it so it's not a safety issue, it's somebody falling through the ties and ending up in a river or something like that. There's a lot more than just saying, well, it's not being used, let's just turn it over. You know, there's a big issue. We talked about this many times before, on what goes on with that railroad.
I think I'm gonna, if it's okay with the board, I'll go back to Dr. Holmes. Matt, you can help me. I'll go back and meet with the Greenway again gladly and just say, we have had indications from the railroad that they are going to keep it operational, that they have a vision of someday using it again. They're certainly not telling us they're gonna decommission it and not use it. And so that they can come and present. I would welcome Dr. Holmes to present his vision for this, because it's a wonderful vision. But there are many things that have to be true in order for that to happen. The first and foremost is this board has to say the railroad's never going to be utilized again for commerce, right? And so I think that's what they're asking. Does this board really think it potentially is? The railroad's saying maybe, right? Maybe it will be. And I don't know how to move Dr. Holmes forward, because he's sitting here saying, I'm going to tell you again, that's never going to happen. We could put this thing to use. And how long are we going to go on for? Why do we need permission to use our land? This is the things that I get asked, guys. So I just want to be able to respond to them that I'm responding for the board.
I think the other nuance is if we didn't want control of that anymore, we basically bought it for a buck. If we were to say, all right, not ours, somebody else, railroad has the first right of refusal, I believe, to buy it back for a buck. So again, the ball's back in their court.
Right.
So
Right.
I'd
That's my point, right?
love to see the presentation,
Right.
but really I think the discussion needs to be had between them and the railroad at some point too, because that's who holds all the meat in this.
Yeah, I'm not sure what power or authority we have to do it.
We really have none.
So presentation to us is fine and dandy, but we doesn't get them any further.
Yeah, I mean, we could support it. We could support their discussions with the railroad on their behalf, but that's about all we could do.
See, the railroad could come in and say, okay, we're gonna salvage everything that's on there, it's our infrastructure. They could remove the bridges, they could cut those out, take them right out, and use them
And,
as scrap.
and even if they don't, they probably have to have the work done to be safe for anything.
I understand all this. I want to make sure that I was speaking for all of you when I tell them that. I'll welcome them to come and make the presentation, but the truth of the matter is, the railroad has the majority of the power, not even if they have the economic power of saying they're the only ones that realistically could decommission these things for any and leave the bridges the way you want them to be as passable. I mean, how would you get every municipality up and down the corridor to agree with something that the Greenway wanted to do in Norwich, New York? That would be a very difficult pot to have somebody in, Green talk about how I'm going to shut down traffic, tear those railways out, do all that. At whose expense? My expense? For what? Right? I mean, I'm just telling you guys that the railroad would, in my opinion, have to be the one to say, I want all that. We're going to do all that for you. And here's how it works. And it's economically advantageous and blah, blah, blah. So I'll have Dr. Holmes come, but I just want to make sure I brought both sides of the coin.
Yep. Anything else on that? Okay. Parish report.
Still working on that, waiting to make sure we have everything from the auditors that I need to put in there. So hopefully, it's due by Friday, so, next month we should have that spreadsheet filled out for you with all of the information so that you guys can look at it and at least know where we're at.
Barb and Jen and I are prepared, our auditors have not met yet, so we're still waiting for some information to populate it. It could be late, they reached out to some other IBAs to find out where they are, you know, because they were, not that misery loves company, but this isn't uncommon, so, but it's out of our control, so it's not out of their control, it's not from lack of effort.
I think the auditors are gonna be on April's schedule to present the audit.
But the preliminary reports for that, you guys should all know, are really good. So the preliminary reports and drafts came back very positive.
And I'll have all of that in the packet for next month.
Okay. Anything else on that? Do we have a need to go into executive session today?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Give it makes motion to adjourn.
Need a second?
Second.
Second by Taylor. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Neil, I.
Give it.
Corey, I.
Burnett,
Blanchard, aye.
Raymond, I
we're adjourned. Nice job. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you sticking around for another year.
Not IDA related, but I'm gonna give you guys some information just so you know, and we can share. I've talked to you guys before about this preventing